Hello and welcome to my video about the RTX 3070 Ti by Gigabyte. This is a quick unbox and test. Card comes clocked in at 1830 MHz, which is slightly above the reference card at 1770. Packaging is adequate. The card is 32 centimeters long. It comes with 3 fans. All 3 fans are intake and they spin in alternate directions to reduce turbulence. There's also a plastic shroud on top of the card. The front, there's 4 output ports, 2 display ports and 2 HDMI ports, and a metal grille for extra heat exhaust. On the side, we've got the RGB Gigabyte logo. This card needs 2 8-pin connectors from the PSU. And there's a metal backplate with a heat pass-through for the heatsink. Overall, the card is quite solid and no real complaints about the build quality. If you build in a small form factor PC like I have, this is the NR200 by Cooler Master. Make sure you check the case's specifications to see if the card can fit. Before we get into the benchmarks and playtest, I'll quickly go through the cooling that I've got going through this card and PC. Because this card is 2.5 slots wide, I could only fit 2 slim fans underneath. So I've got 2 120mm fans underneath and a 140mm fan on the side, pulling fresh air in. And for exhaust, I've got the 92mm at the back, as well as 2 120mm at the top, pulling hot air out of the case. This is to keep a more neutral air pressure balance. So for the benchmark, we used Unigine Heaven Benchmark 4.0 at 1440 at extreme settings with anti-aliasing on. So you can see here at stock clocks, the card was hitting 70 degrees at max temperature and it was pulling 300 watts of power, which is why you should really use 2 cables from your power supply to your GPU instead of 1 daisy chaining, because you risk pulling too much current through one and melting the cable. The card averaged 115 frames per second in the test, which is quite good for 1440 gaming. Now we can go into our quick overclock settings. So for this card, I managed to push the core clock by 130 MHz and the memory clock by 1000 MHz, and the card was still pretty stable. You can see it hit 69 degrees at max temperatures and it was pulling 314 watts. But we did pass the 2000 MHz barrier for the GPU clock, which is quite insane, and we got over a 10% improvement compared to stock at 127 average frames. That's a great result, but power draw and temperature is a bit high for my liking, so we move on to the next best thing, which is undervolting. This is one of my earlier undervolts using MSI Afterburner, and with undervolting we can achieve higher clock speeds at lower voltages by forcing it through software. This in turn should lower our temperatures, as you see here. We maxed out at 63, but most of the time it hovers below 60, and it was only drawing 230 watts instead of 300 before. With these settings, we still managed to get 120 average frames per second, which is a 5% improvement on stock, while using less power and generating less heat. For the gaming test coming up, I tweaked the Undervolt settings a little bit more. So it's running at 0.95 volts at 2025 MHz. And you can see the frames and the temperatures on the top left of the screen. This is Overwatch at 1440p with ultra settings. The frames barely drop below 350, which is great if you have a high refresh rate monitor. I only play first-person shooters, so unfortunately that's all I can show for the demonstration, but hopefully it's enough to give you an idea of what this card can do. For other more demanding titles like Doom, this is with RTX ON, at max settings, and we're still getting above 144 frames per second, which would run really smooth on most high refresh rate monitors, and guarantee you won't miss any of the action. For Back 4 Blood beta, this is at 1440p with max settings and RTX on. And the frames do dip a little in heavy action, but nowhere low enough to make the experience unenjoyable. Overall, 3070 Ti is a great card for 1440p gaming. It's a shame that the GPU price is a bit crazy at the moment, but if you happen to find one at close to MSRP, this card will serve you for many years to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.